Hello, happy Tuesday, and welcome to another episode of Electricpreneur Secrets, the Electricians Podcast. If you didn't know, now you do. We're here to help electricians. Help them what? Help them master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. Joe, I don't know if I said this on the live yet, but last
Mhm.
week was the first time someone jumped on a call with us to become a client, but they called me the pleasant peasant.
It was amazing to hear that because you mentioned it the other day, and it was just like, you know what? Why can we just say, why are you the pleasant peasant, Clay?
Because I'm so Canadian, I hold the door open for people and thank them for walking through.
You know what, though? Hands down, you're one of the nicest people I've met, but just like you've got a good soul. And I'm so happy that more people get to see it on this podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I made that reference on social media. I did a post the other day and a bunch of people laughed that probably didn't get the joke. A bunch of people laughed that did get it. Those are the ones I really enjoyed. But if you don't understand, that for a few episodes was my self-given nickname for some reason. The Pleasant
It was
Peasant
funny.
and Joseph the Salesbot Lucani at your service. Premium service, of course, which, by the way, yesterday Joseph did not experience. Once again, okay, you got to share this story, Joe. So for
Oh, were you
those of
talking
you
about the
that don't
insurance
know,
company?
Orange County, New York State was flooded badly. And
Yeah.
Joe received a timely message from his insurance company. Please let us know. What did the message say, Joe?
I don't know how they did this. Like I don't understand how this happened because it's too in sync. So Orange County just got destroyed in flash flooding. Like we got 10 plus inches of water. People have basements flooded, rivers are overdone, roads are destroyed. Obviously, not a good situation to be in. We get a letter from our insurance company the next day, like not even 24 hours later. And the very first thing was, we are notifying you that your insurance policy does not cover floods and or mudslides due to natural disasters. And now, granted, my first thought was, there's no way they overnighted a letter to all their people. But like the thought of like, can you imagine the timing of, hey, I'm just going to send out this timely notice, and it comes less than 24 hours after a major flood that people experienced.
That one might have been delivered by drone.
That might have been. They
I'm going
just
to say
came and
that
dropped
because
it off through the window.
apparently the roads are washed out. Like you were saying, it's now a 20-minute drive's taking an hour and a half to get the girls to daycare, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it must
Wow.
have been by drone or by Jesus.
That's got to be what it is. Send straight to the rapture. Just beam down like, Scotty, beam me. Let's go.
Jesus is now in insurance. He walked on water to let you know that you are not covered by the flood, my friend. I'm sorry. Not
Can you
covered in the
imagine
event
the
of
sight of that?
You know, when you call someone and they hang up right away, this is much worse. This is like a pre-hang up. This is don't call us. We're not
Yeah.
here for you.
We're not here for you.
Send your payment, but don't call us.
Exactly. That's literally like, thank you. Thank you, American Insurance. We appreciate you.
Oh boy. And to dim the laughter, I have to get serious for a moment and let you know that Rob says there was a fatality nearby, unfortunately. It is
Yeah.
sad in these natural events, Rob. My condolences. Very sorry to hear that. If there was someone you knew, I
Mm.
apologize for making any fun.
Mm.
But those are the current events. And I really thought you guys ought to hear that. And I think you ought to hear this as well. I
Mm.
got premium service yesterday.
Oh, you got to tell me about this.
At the end of it, I actually thanked the fella and told this young man exactly how well he did.
Oh,
You
please.
have to acknowledge it. And it was
Mhm.
like literally from, you know what? I don't even know if he recognized me as a mentor, but I felt like a mentor in that moment. And I gave him like the gun and was like, you did good today, kid. Like it was that
You like
moment.
toss him the keys and be like, good job, sport.
Yeah,
Tussle
yeah.
his hair
So
a little bit.
do you guys have Long and McQuaid stores down there? Long and McQuaid, like instrument music,
Mm.
speakers, guitars, pianos, maybe a
No,
Canadian company. If you guys know
very
Long and
likely.
McQuaid, let me know if that's American as well. But this young guy plays in a death metal band, good dude, long hair or whatever, but
Mm.
just service at the highest level. At the highest level, man. I was super impressed. Very thorough, walked me through every step, let me know about financing options. Like everything went right. I couldn't believe
Mhm.
it. really went the extra mile. So I had to thank him for that. And if you're doing that today for your clients, I need to thank you guys too. Don't worry, you are in the right place. We are going to talk electrical. We are going to talk long and hard about it and give you a couple action items as we do every day. In fact, this being episode 110, that means we've given about 220 action items so far.
Wow. To think about that already, right?
Right? Let that sink for a sec. Now, if you guys are some of those action takers, or if not, let this one sit. I don't think I mentioned this yesterday, but one of our listeners and followers, Dorian, cashed a $6,500 check yesterday. And all he sent was the picture of the amount. And we were like, what's up in the chat? And he said, oh, I'm sorry, guys. That's a check I'm cashing because of things I heard on the podcast. Thank you. Have a good day. I love that. That's why we create these action items. This is 100%, as we've said, a value ladder. And if you take these actions, I promise you improvements in your service electrical business. What do you think about that one, Joe?
Honestly, I had to take a moment and just kind of step back because feeling honored is just such an understatement. Like, I truly feel like, I don't want to say that we were born for this, but I felt like this is where life has brought us for a purpose. Like, to have brought both of us together to help others at the highest level, it feels beyond just a natural calling. I feel like this is something that really needed to happen. And I'm grateful that we were selected to be a part of it.
And you're the catalyst, so I'm grateful too. But I'm also grateful for what you just said. Here's why. Here at Service Loop Electrical, we have something we call the Thrive Five, the people we're constantly trying to engage with in our marketing and sales efforts to continue to build this audience, grow this tribe, find more of us, and find more ways to help all of us. Does that make sense? So on this Thrive Five, we're currently at 4. Yesterday, I said to you, Joe, who's number 5? Who we add into the list here to work through? And you just said born this way. And now I know it's got to be Lady Gaga. We have to get Lady Gaga on the show. Joe is born this way to serve electricians. And I think she'll understand. She wrote a song about it. It's got to be right.
You know, that's got to count. You know what? I'm pretty sure you threw me a curveball there. I'm listening to you 100% face value. I'm like, yeah, he's going to tell me a provider, a service company, Gaga. Yes, Gaga. All right, let's go.
Yeah, or as we call her in the field, Lady Gag Gag. No offense intended. I don't know. I can't undo that. Anyway, it's been mostly jokes today. We do have a pretty important topic. Train in-house or hire out. Or as I titled this one, I think the other way around. Hire out, third party, or train in-house. Now, that could be a number of things. What comes to mind for you first when we talk about this subject, Joe?
The very, very first thing is your office staff. And the reason being is, can we just talk directly to the electrical business owner right now? Because like, I remember being in your shoes where you're the one turning the tools, you're the one checking the books, you're the one monitoring Facebook, but guess what else you're doing? You're answering the freaking phone. Like, I remember having to buy a blue, in fact, I actually think I have with me. I have, yes, this same Blue Parrot headset I bought with me in my first year, and I would wear it on panel change jobs so that if I had a call come in, I could just drop the boom set, answer it, and still work. That sucks. We shouldn't have to do that, but I understand the necessity of it. So how do you get beyond that level?
Yeah.
The step has got to be, someone's got to answer the phone for you, right?
Definitely. You really only have a couple options, but you yourself can't do everything. And that is going to be the difference. And I feel like this fork in the road really does blend into, okay, well, what is your vision? Now, sometimes we call it Chuck in a truck or Tank Top Terry or Stan in a van, we heard for the first time the other day. The reality is, for some people, that's all you want. I'm just going to speak to that person for half a second here and just say, if that's you, if that's all you want to do is just work for yourself, just maybe you and a helper, and that's your retirement plan, good on you. You could still serve at the highest level. You can still run this humble little business, and you can do it in balance. You can. Okay. If you're that person, you can also hire an answering service, and they could help you a lot. And you could build that into your burdens, build it into your rate, and still be a profitable, happy contractor that just does that. now that that's out of the way, for everyone else who's listening, likely because they're growing, not because they like the sound of our voice, they want to grow. What would you suggest here then, Joe?
So it's got to be done in stages. Like the biggest problem that people go into is they assume I have to have a body. I can hire some 16-year-old college, a high school kid. They'll answer the phone, they'll sound nice, and that'll be good. The problem is we've all had that idea, but why do you not see more 16-year-olds answering phones in big commercial centers anymore? The reason being is because you need to have a certain level of professionalism. We can't just get a straw hat boss and put him into place. You have to physically have someone that's been trained. They are the smile of your company. They are the voice of your company. If they sound like they smoke 8 packs a day and could not care less about anything they're trying to call about, what is your customer going to pick up on? They're not going to remember, oh, I saved $13 an hour working with this person. They're going to say, wow, I tried getting a call letting them know that I had a tree come down and knock down my overhead service line. And the person just said, all right, well, we can get out there in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. You have to have something more than that. Make sense so far?
Totally. Now, at the same time, play devil's advocate on that. If we are truly talking about hiring out, one of the problems I've always looked at is, okay, now one of two scenarios happens. I'm either going to invest in that third-party service by helping them better serve my customers in the way that I want to serve them with scripts and influence there on how our process works, or they're going to help me because I don't have that. Right. And so they're going to provide with their scripts and stuff. And that could be a good stepping stone. But if I'm truly going to build my own or have my own or be in a service like ours where we have that front door script, and if you're not with us in the Facebook Electripreneurs group, you could be getting access to that free front door script just by typing on this post front door or visiting us on the website at serviceloopelectrical.com to grab that one. But that front door script helped Joe sell $30,000 in club memberships the first year it was used, when roughly 70 people said yes to become first-class members before you even went to serve them, right?
Yeah, a lot of what it was that when we got these calls, it was amazing because we started offering the club memberships. And then what people don't realize is it's not just what the call comes in for. It's not just that ticket. You now have a customer that wants to exclusively work with you. So as you keep going to these calls, yeah, you're going to get the initial payment, but you're also going to be getting better relationships, and they're more likely to put their hand and wallets up and say, yes, I'll work with you. So there's a great opportunity in doing club memberships.
100%. Now, another argument I'll present, not to completely hijack what you were saying, but if you're a growing electrical contractor, at some point you need someone in-house. You're going to need them full time. Like if you want to be independent in terms of being able to pass a phishing test, so even you've got, let's say, a couple of techs that are able to sell and serve, right? So that you can step back, take a vacation, or as one of our clients did, and come back at the end of the week and see wins on the board. See still a $20,000 or $30,000 week, maybe $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 week. If you ever want that, you're going to need the administrative help. You're going to need that CSR position filled.
Correct. Because the biggest problem,
it's like, well, when do you start then? Go ahead.
No worries. You literally, you and I are on the exact same page, because I was planning on starting with where do we start from here? So I love that our brains were in sync.
Excellent.
So the thing is, there are some people who are almost, you mentioned it earlier, what is it? Paralysis by analysis, where they're sitting there like, okay, I know I need an office, but it's an overwhelming effect to train an office. And it's also, as a business owner, we don't like giving control to people outside of our organization. So you can either hire out, but then you can't control it, but then you can hire in, but then you have to control it. And some people say, I don't know what to do, and they do nothing. But believe it or not, there actually is a gray area here. That is where the answer is. So let's say, sake of argument, you're too small or you're too new right now to have a CSR, but you know you need one. Well, the best thing about an in-house CSR is that you can train them to be the way you want them to be. They're your person. They can develop a relationship with your clients. Eventually, over time, they're going to be like, oh, like my favorite her name was Lauren. She was an amazing office manager. And over time, people were like, we love Lauren. We love her. And they would call specifically just ask to see how she was. You cannot get that relationship with someone that is just a hire out. But at the same time, it's hard to build there. So to circle back to this, the gray area is you can do both. You can hire an outsourced system and train your CSR at the same time at your pace, and then slowly start to shift off the roles and say, okay, maybe the other office now takes care of after hour calls. Maybe they're going to be a stand-in for when it's overwhelming during emergencies and storms. And then over time, eventually the CSR you train can become your office manager, who then can train the lessons that you taught.
I love
It
that.
works beautifully.
100%. I
And
love that.
can I
Sorry.
go a little deeper if that's okay?
Yeah, go.
So even deeper than this, all of us have had experience training apprentices, right? So I want to put this exact same terminology into electrical apprenticeship. So the rule was usually you get 2 apprentices, right? Or you get 1 apprentice and you train this person to be everything that you could be. Now, assuming you've downloaded all your knowledge into this person, they have it. What do? Well, ideally, you've promoted this person to journey, and then they now train 2 apprentices under them. The knowledge exponentially starts to grow. The same can be applied to your CSR department. You train 1 person. You make sure they're great. They know what they're doing. Promote them up. Give them the accountability. Give them the ability of saying, I have a position here and I have a purpose here. I have a role. I belong. Give them the validation. And then allow them to train the new CSRs that come in, since they were trained exactly how you wanted them to do it. At that point, you'll have 1 office manager, 2 CSRs, and then you can phase out the remote office.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. And you know what, you're touching on something that we don't often talk about, but something they call the processional effect, or the processional impact, the little butterfly effect, the things we don't see right now, these little doors that are opening in the future as a wave of this initial investment and this initial energy, this force, like a drop in the water. It doesn't end there. It keeps going. Right. So I'm even an advocate of our field staff, service techs, being then familiar with that CSR training, and even receiving trainings from that CSR to make sure everyone fully understands the client journey that's being carried out here. That is so important. And I just want to also plant this little seed of, if we haven't bored you yet with this, well, I've got something really boring for you. With the front door script and the follow-up on the unsold and the unsold options, that CSR doesn't have to be an expense. That doesn't have to be just an overhead cost, right? Between the evidence, like we mentioned already, $30K in the first year, just in first class memberships sold from using a proper script that identifies that you have a first class membership to be taken advantage of, not sold. Like our client Alan said, when he sold 7 in the first 30 days with us, it's too easy. It makes perfect sense why they would want to take it. Why wouldn't they want to take it becomes the question when it's that irresistible. But now add on the back end with this follow-up script and making good use on the back end, how another contractor that worked with us 18x'd their average opportunity calls sold a month on that follow-up script. Like, that's
so
worth
proud
some
of him.
cake. Right? So that adds a lot of value here. And that is what we're not going to see, at least not in a long term, or that I've seen evidence of short term, with a third party service. So it may be kind of this transitionary, is what I'm kind of hearing you suggest, Joe, is like, okay, we're in a bad situation. I can't be pausing my current service with a client to take a call. I can't have to put the tools down every 10 seconds because a phone rings. Right? But if we can offload that to someone who can take it for now, and as you suggested, always be hiring, bring someone in-house, find that right fit, and just offset that training over time until you're completely relieved of that third party. I think that's great advice, Joe. Well done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's one of those things where too often we tend to overcomplicate things as business owners. Like, a lot of times we want to be in control. We want to control everything. It's like, isn't that why a lot of us left the old companies? Because we're like, they don't know what they're doing. We'll run the show. But the thing is that you're right. You can't just leave your clients in a situation where they're not getting served. And you can't be the one who's answering it. So any kind of middle ground becomes the safe path to walk.
Yeah, I love that for sure. It's so important to recognize, again, just this investment piece. Like, I think I've said this before, Joe. I want to say it again, though. One of my mentors, in fact, this one's name is Keith Cunningham. He's a brilliant business brain. He's been around a long time. You saw pictures, the guy's old. Wrote books such as The Road Less Stupid. And he would say, when someone came forward and said, "Oh, expenses creeped up this month," or it just costs so much to run a business, he would always say, there are no costs in a business. And that's how actually the government even classifies your expenses. And here's what I mean. If it's truly a direct write-off as a tax expense, that means the government's acknowledging that what you spent money on actually contributed to your revenue and to your profitability. And if you truly look at it that way, then it's not an expense. It's an investment.
I agree. And we should all be investing in our offices.
If that position, if that office is simply an expense for you, the question becomes, what can I leverage here to make this an investment? How is this bettering that client journey? How is it bettering the staff journey? How is it providing us with this revenue? And if there's pieces missing, then we got to do something about that. What do you think about that, Joe?
So I honestly don't know what to say. The reason being is that as we go through it, I'm honestly not sure. You think I got a brain fart that came.
Let me be more specific. Have you ever heard of that investments, not expenses?
Yes, that I follow. It literally, have you ever had one of those moments where you're listening to it and literally just came through?
I gave you a pretty general question too, so help you out a bit more there.
No worries. All right. So when it comes down to investments, and I personally love this very, very much, I personally believe that anything that you're doing should be able to move the dollar forward. It's either going to save you time or it's going to allow your service to be better. Those are really only two things. You're either taking time for efficiencies or you're taking that time to make it a better experience for your client. This CSR position is the best way to do that because it does both things. It is one, the overhead cutter, because you're right. If you can get it where you're offering memberships, you're reactivating calls from the dead, that's great. But the second thing is it also provides the longevity to your client, where once again, as we mentioned earlier, if they can develop a relationship with the person that they're calling, it's funny how they may not remember you, but they're going to remember the relationship they had when they called for the last problem. That interaction is going to stay in their mind. So not only are you able to use it to sell memberships, you're able to use it to reactivate calls from the dead, but you're really putting a face and a name to your brand. But more importantly, that face and name also has a voice.
I love that. I do. And did you know, I've got a did you know here to stitch into this podcast. Did you know that that person could also be handling something like social media posts?
That could be working as well.
Did you know that recently we gave away a value piece for our Facebook cheat sheet for electricians, where our clients have been able to generate 10 plus leads a week from this thing? And you can do that using a simple process, and that you yourself wouldn't have to do it if you had a CSR in place to do that for you. Just had to stitch that in there, Joe.
I love it. I was going to say, literally, it makes me proud because the thing is, yeah, it's a stitch, but I'm also really proud of what we're building because we're helping people with it. You know, it's not like you're selling a ticket to something. It's realistically, here's knowledge. You can have it. And once you have it, it's yours forever. All I'm asking is I'm going to put my hand to give it. I just need someone to come and take it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm happy for that.
For sure. So again, if you want that value piece or the front door or the follow-up script, in fact, all three value pieces we spoke about today, we do give away for free. That means FREE. You don't have to pay. We make a deposit of equity into your business just for the sake of it, because we want you to climb this ladder. We want you to improve. We want you to be better than you were yesterday, of course. So if you wanted to take advantage of that, join us in the VIP on our Facebook Electripreneur group, or grab it off our webpage. serviceloopelectrical.com. Now, Joe, I want to finish this with a bit more on the who.
Mhm.
Since we've focused so much on the CSR and that really, should we hire out or train in-house? We're kind of in this
Mhm.
combination of there's times for each and building up
Mhm.
to it. But what would you suggest as the right kind of person? And what did you look for as the right kind of person in your business when you were looking for a CSR who is able to truly represent us wholly with customer service on the mind?
It's the same way that you look for a technician, right? Like you have the understanding that some people are like, oh, I'm going to hire someone who's been in the office or has been in the field. They know what they're doing. But what they're usually bringing in with them is all the bad habits and all the bad toxic traits that came from that other facility. They left there for a reason. It wasn't because everything was roses. And it's like, no, there's more things going on. So what I would usually look for is I would go for the personality, the integrity, and the character. When you would do your hiring, there are usually questions that you can ask to determine someone's character, such as, questions like, are you able to do side work? What the pricing would be. We could also give scenarios of if the customer calls and says that you showed up late and you know for a fact that you say I'm here between 10 and 11 and it's 9:05, I couldn't have come late. But instead of arguing, figuring out how can I help them understand? So to double down on it, I would always hire for the character because skills can be trained when you have a process.
Yeah, I love that. There's a little saying I always said, followed along with was hire for attitude, train for skill. And
Exactly.
there's a bunch of stories there, but ultimately, I think we can all agree one of the worst things we could do is put someone with anger problems in a CSR position.
I gotta admit, it's a hard job. I don't think we as an industry give CSRs enough credit because for anyone who's ever had to answer the phone, some customers are just ridiculous. Like there's no other words for it. We would get calls where people would ask if we were their utility company, and then they would be mad that we weren't and that we didn't have the number to give them. Like, what do you mean you can't patch me through to the utility company? You're an electrician. It's like, but we're not the same company. So yeah, I get it. You have to be able to put your anger issues aside for that.
Definitely ridiculous. So, with that said, with the who, I'm joining you there on the hire for attitude, train for skill. Some skills that could be relevant would just be office stuff, right? But more importantly, again, answering with a smile. That's
Mhm.
something that's really hard to teach. Have you ever heard that in like a call center environment or seen that in a sales environment, Joe, where they're literally saying hire or not hire, answer the phone with a smile?
Yeah, I strongly encourage that concept. In fact, so much so that we would recommend having a mirror next to the computer. Because what you would do is you would smile, you would answer the phone, look, diaphragm breath, breathe, then answer. Oxygen goes to the brain, smile comes up, your intentions are set, go.
I love that. And you
Mhm.
just smoked that one off the tee, brother. I love that that process, just like our sales process, has like a pre-arrival piece to it.
The thing is, there's so much that people don't understand. And it's not that we understand more, it's that we've experienced a lot. Being someone who's on the spectrum, I struggle with not having a process for everything. So, in order to thrive, because I want to succeed at the highest level and I want to serve at an even higher level than that. So, I needed to have these processes in place. And I'm happy to pass that along to everyone else who can use benefit from it.
And I love where we ended up with this one because I know this one, this episode is going to help some people, but also
Mhm.
because we just did a full circle. And
Mhm.
here's how I want to tie this back and open us up to options. If you yourself are on the tools and answering the phone still, if you
Mhm.
yourself are trying to run all the day-to-day operations, client fulfillment, and marketing and sales, and you yourself are not able to look in a mirror and smile before you answer that phone, then you yourself should not be answering that phone. Is there any
Mhm.
argument to that, Joe?
Not at all. Because the thing is, there is a very true expression with a smile heard over the phone, right? It's a consistent theme. I know you touched on it, but if you can't do it, you don't realize the client can hear it. And we've actually done these exercises where I'll go off screen, I'll say the same thing two ways, and I've yet to have someone be able to say, I couldn't tell the difference.
Hmm.
So it happens and it's true. So make it a point to bring it into your facility, guys. Just get a camera, get a mirror. How much could it cost? Just put it
All
up
right.
there. Smile.
All right. So we're running out of time. What do you say for action items today? You want action or all star?
I'm down for either one. I have both. I'm
You
ready
have
to
both?
go.
Okay, go first then. You've got it.
Okay. So the very first thing that we need to do, like I would say bare minimum, you're at rock bottom. What do you do? The very bare minimum is acknowledging what you're trying to do in your role. You personally, what is your role? The way I'm trying to describe this is in order to figure out whether you're going to hire out or you're going to train in, you have to figure out where am I trying to be? Am I trying to be in the office and managing the office? Am I trying to be on the tools? Am I trying to be in the parts ordering? So wherever you're trying to be end up, that will help you know where you're trying to be. So bare minimum action, where are you trying to go in your position in your company? And that will determine how involved you can be in your office.
Okay, I like it. What would you bolt onto that for an all-star if you had both?
Sure. So the all-star action on top of that is being able to say, all right, you've known what you're going to do. Now timeline it. Because it's one thing to say, I want to be out of the field. When? When do you want to be out of the field? That's a little bit harder to say. Because once you put a date on it, now you have to say, all right, well, I've put it into the universe. This is something that has to happen by this date, which means I better start now. Because time moves in one direction. You've put a pin in one of it, but it's going to keep moving to that pin, whether you take action or not. So being able to say, I want to be out of the field by 2024. Okay. So what do you need to do in order to make that happen? What steps do you need to take to bring on someone into your office to get you into that position by that time?
Great advice. I don't think anyone will get there without that. I'm going to stitch one more thing in there because I think it's really important. In any position in your company, you first wear the hat. How do I know? Because you realize at some point, hey, this is something I have to do. And then there's no one else to do it. So you do it yourself, or the missus does it with you, or whatever, a partner if you have one in your business. But quite often it's on you and your arm's length network of people that are trying to run this business. The only way to get that off of you is to have a process for how you would like it done. If you're not clear on this yet, I really want you to get clear on it. Make a list of the items that you're looking to delegate. What does that person do for you? Because what happens if you skip this step, even if you hire out a third party, is you're going to go to them with nothing, no preparations, and just the knowledge of, I'm overwhelmed, I need help. And they're going to say to you, sure, what do you want us to say when we answer the phone on your behalf? And you're going to go, I just say, hey, how's it going? Or I just say, hey, it's Service Soup Electrical, how can I help you? And they're going to, oh, okay. Well, would you like us to add in some of the stuff that we say for other people? And you'll go, sure, that sounds nice. And next thing you know, they're just kind of running their play on your behalf. You don't have really any process or results or evaluations for that. And so at some point, what it leads to is, am I developing an ROI? Is this service actually working? What if you begin to question the leads that are on the schedule? You go back to them and you go, well, how come I don't have leads on the schedule? You got calls, but you didn't convert them to scheduled appointments. But you're not going to know. There's going to be a gap, and it'll be like starting all over anyway. Have you ever seen this happen, Joe?
Unfortunately, yeah. It's one of those things where when you have too much on your plate, sometimes anyone who's willing to come to take something off, you're like, oh, good, we get it off. And then you let complete hands off, and then you start smelling smoke. You're like, what's burning? Oh, give it back. All right, no, you can't do it like that. Same thing happens here. So unfortunately, yes, I have seen it.
And then the worst thing that happens after that, in my opinion, is great service providers who are just trying to help you might even receive a bad reputation as you then say, well, it didn't work for me. Here's the problems I had. When in reality, the expectations were never set. That can happen all too often with something like a call answering service, or we see it often with like marketing companies. SEO plans, big culprit. And that's an episode for another time, Joe. I want to thank you and thank everyone for tuning in with us for another episode of Electricpreneur Secrets, the Electricians Podcast, where we're typically trying to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. Today was that third piece, delivering premium level service by deciding whether to hire out or train in-house your CSR and admin staff. Joe, thanks again. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday.
Truly my pleasure, brother. Talk to you soon.
Bye for now.